Hey, thank you for joining me. I am Toriono Newkirk, and welcome to Toriono Knows Ball. You can get all your knowledge from this channel. Today, we're going to be discussing the Jacksonville Jaguars. As you can see, Miami Heat fan. We will be talking some NBA here as well, but currently, we're going to be talking about some NFL for the Jaguars, providing coverage for them. And currently, sitting at 1-5, the Jacksonville Jaguars are clearly struggling. Right now, they're in contention for the #1 overall pick, and it doesn't look promising for this season. Coming off of back-to-back nine-win seasons, I don't think that this team can get anywhere close to it. If they're healthy, they possibly could, but that's a big if. Looking at how this team is stacked up currently for the 2024 to 2025 season, it does look like this team has talent. This team has promise. There's just no discipline. There's no proper adjustments for the coaching. The offense is stagnant. The offense is dated, if we're being honest here. And looking at the analytics, Trevor Lawrence is a phenomenal quarterback, but he has no support outside of Brian Thomas Jr., and he even dropped a touchdown yesterday. So looking at everything from a standpoint of looking at improving in the coaching staff as well as in the front office, today we're going to be discussing 5 head coach candidates, 5 GM candidates, as well as some potential trade candidates. I have 6 total here as far as players that could be on the move. And we did see a move today where Roy Robertson Harris was unfortunately moved to the Seattle Seahawks for a 2026 6th-rounder. So let's go ahead and dive into the head coach candidates. My first candidate is really obvious. We have Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. And Ben Johnson has been impressive. He's been attached to this coaching search for a while. I know that obviously the organization has not been looking for a head coach, but the fans have been clamoring for a new head coach. And Ben Johnson is the obvious choice. He's controlling an offense in Detroit that is commanding, that just came off of a 47-9 win over the Dallas Cowboys in a dominant fashion, whether it be in the pass game or the run game, with Jared Goff having 315 yards and the Detroit offense putting up over 170 yards rushing. So the rushing attack is phenomenal. It's a balanced 1-2 punch, and the passing game is just really on point and progressive, and it gets touchdowns. Something that Jacksonville Jaguars fans have been thirsting for is a great red zone offense, and Detroit has it. So getting a guy in Ben Johnson who can really move the ball, knows how to utilize his players, keep players healthy in terms of using a 1-2 punch in the backfield, which Jacksonville should have, and being able to get the most out of a quarterback, a former top pick in Jared Goff, is exactly what the Jacksonville Jaguars need. So I think Ben Johnson should be everyone's #1. He is currently my #1. And I look forward to hopefully seeing them interview him if we get to that point. And I think he should be the top candidate, deservedly so, controlling what I believe is the best offense in the NFL currently. Secondly, we're going to move on to Wes Phillips, offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. He's currently leading a helm with Sam Darnold as his quarterback. And if you were to tell me in 2024 that Wes Phillips and Sam Darnold would possibly be leading a top 5 offense, I don't think I would have taken you seriously a year or two ago. And Sam Darnold has become a really, really big talking point alongside guys like Geno Smith, that if you have the right coaching staff and the right supporting cast around a quarterback, they can succeed in the NFL. So no matter the quarterback, it just depends on the situation. And I think this is what we're looking at with Trevor Lawrence. A lot of people have their gripes with him, but currently I believe he's in that same boat. And I do think that the coaching staff and the front office are doing him an injustice. Wes Phillips is leading a top 5 offense with Sam Darnold and obviously with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, but they currently are striving. I think that Wes Phillips has the ability to, dial up plays and get things going deep down in the field. Justin Jefferson, I've seen his yards per target go up and skyrocket under this Wes Phillips offense. And Sam Darnold is obviously having a career revival, especially, I believe, in a contract year. and he's looking to, possibly get a big market. And I think he should stick in Minnesota. Obviously, that uh, may be troubling for a team that just drafted a quarterback in the first round, but the more the merrier, I think. If you can turn Sam Darnold into an asset for you, whether it be via the trade deadline this year or if they have an extra year on his contract. I'm not completely 100% sure on what the contract details are for him this year currently, but if you can turn a guy like Sam Darnold into an asset, a plus asset, you win. You win in this game. So I think it's very crucial that Wes Phillips gets an opportunity to interview for head coaching opportunities. And I think he has shown that he can revitalize the quarterback, he can make a quarterback comfortable, and he can have a sufficient offense, especially with an elite talent in Justin Jefferson. And Jordan Addison is obviously a great receiver in his own respect. Moving on to the third candidate, I have Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for the Bills. Currently, obviously, working with Josh Allen has been a wonder for him. I think the Carolina situation was also a situation in which a coach was not best suited for that opportunity. I think it was just bad timing coming into a team that obviously needed to rebuild and wasn't going to be an efficient offense. I think Joe Brady has shown with Josh Allen that he can create an offense that has a staggering rushing attack, as well as being able to throw some play action, get some deep ball down the field, and just really, really make it easy for a quarterback to just dial it up. And Joe Brady, obviously coming out of LSU, was a huge offensive coordinator candidate, and even getting some whispers for head coaching jobs in the NFL at one point. I think Joe Brady is a brilliant mind. I think he has the opportunity to have a big season with the Bills this season, and hopefully can make some noise in the playoffs. And if he does that, I think he will have teams knocking at the door just to even speak with him. So I think Joe Brady is a great candidate. I think he could be a great head coach, but I think he's a wonderful offensive mind that could really pull the most out of Trevor Lawrence. Next, we have our last and final offensive coordinator candidate to move up to head coach, in Adam Stenavich, the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. He's a phenomenal coordinator. He's worked with Malik Willis and Jordan Love, and Malik Willis had some of his best games of his career under this coordinator. And who thought would be a reclamation project, he looked completely fine as a starting quarterback, and had some people wondering if he should go to another team and start. Tennessee had him as washed goods, and I think that was unfair just to move on to Will Levis so quickly. But I do think that Willis did have his struggles on his own. But this offense with the Packers is a phenomenal rushing attack. They've used their running backs well. They have a nice stable following Josh Jacobs. And I think that this passing game is dialed up to a 10, maybe even an 11. The way that they're able to spread the ball and allow Jordan Love to be a point guard, that is the way that I think Trevor Lawrence is the most efficient, when he's able to dial the ball up and just spread the ball around no matter who needs the targets. Just being able to go through his progressions and finish his reads and see who has the best shot at making a play. I think that is when Trevor Lawrence is at his best, when he's in a high-tempo offense and he's able to just dial it up, spread the ball to the left or the right side of the field, and even try and hit some intermediate in the middle. So I think the Packers coordinator, Adam Stenavich, is a great candidate. I think he's set the table and shown what he can do with a talented quarterback in Jordan Love, but also being able to show that this is a spread offense. This is going to be we're gonna get the ball to everybody in space, and we're gonna give guys the opportunity to get yak. So yards after catch is a big thing that Trevor Lawrence needs. He's able to spread the ball efficiently, but there's just not enough playmakers on this team that are going to be reliable for him going forward, and we'll get more into that during the trade candidate portion. Finally, for the fifth head coach candidate, I have Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. Another Vikings candidate here. I think the Vikings have two of the best coordinators in the NFL currently. I thought Flores was a great hire initially, and it has turned out to be one of the best hires in the NFL. He is leading the number one defense in the NFL currently with the Minnesota Vikings, and he is commanding that locker room. I think that he has the opportunity to get another head coaching job, and deservedly so. I think Miami definitely did him dirty, and I think there's been some salt thrown on the wound with the rumors between him and Tua and how that relationship transpired. I do think that it could be a concern if he can mesh well with Trevor Lawrence, but I do think he has the ability to work well with the locker room. And obviously, the guys in Minnesota, they bought in 100%. So I think Flores has the opportunity to be a phenomenal head coach in this league. I think he has the leadership qualities as well as the ability to coach a stout defense, which the Jacksonville Jaguars have desperately needed since 2017. And I think they had the chance to be that last year and this year, and the coaches just couldn't pull everything out of them. I think Brian Flores does a great job at putting his defenders in the best scenario possible to make a play. And I think last year they did a great job at that with the defensive staff and creating takeaways. And obviously Flores, this defense that Minnesota has is just takeaway, 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 takeaway. Taking away candy from a baby at this point. For me, I think Flores has the ability to dial up the blitz, which has been a major concern for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year, as we only blitzed rookie Caleb Williams one time this past Sunday. I think that's a major concern. I think you have to be able to get rookies on their heels, and just any quarterback in general, you have to have pressure on the quarterback. If you're not generating pressures and creating plays that'll dial up anything from the inside or the outside, whether it be a DB blitz or throwing a linebacker in, or even just throwing an extra Sam edge in there just to try and get the quarterback rattled and thinking and trying to anticipate and trying to, change the formation of a play or adjust the pass coverage. Like, there has to be some type of way that you make the quarterback think. If everything is just read, and they can just make their progression through the pocket without any concern about what the defenders are going to do next, it's an easy game. They don't even have to game plan for you. At that point, you're just cones. I don't see a way that this team can improve with the current staff at the helm. So Flores is my fifth and final head coach candidate, and I think that possibly if Lawrence wants Flores and he has a budding relationship with him, and I think they can find a great coordinator, a great offensive coordinator for him, I think this could work. I think Flores could be a great way to establish the culture in Jacksonville. Obviously, we've talked about culture for the past, I don't know how many years. I'm only 23 years old, so it could be the past 20 years. It's been that bad. But I think Flores has an opportunity to be a great head coach in this league, and he's shown that he can create a dominant defense. So that's my fifth and final head coach candidate. Now we're going to move on to the general managers as we look to move on from Trent Baalke. So going in with the first candidate is going to be Ray Agnew, the assistant general manager for the Detroit Lions currently. Great talent evaluator. Obviously, he's built up the trenches on both sides of the ball in Detroit, and I think that's where Jacksonville needs to look at improving first. I definitely believe that focusing on the offensive line, this is going to be key. If you build up the trenches here in Jacksonville and find the weapons later, or find the skill players later, that's how you win. With Detroit, they've been able to focus on the trenches, and then go add a guy like Brian Branch, who we wanted in Jacksonville. He's a skilled player, from a DB standpoint, is able to go out there and just make a play. He can go out there and make the big tackle. He can go out there and cause a fumble. He can go out there and get an interception. You can dial up off the nickel and get him on a blitz. He can get a sack. Same thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got him on day 3. So if you're able to go in there and build the trenches up and then attack what your skill position needs are later, I think Ray Agnew does a phenomenal job at that. I think he's a great talent evaluator and roster builder alongside Brad Holmes. And I think they've established a culture over there of just finding dogs. And if you ask any Jacksonville Jaguar fan what they need on this team, they won't even tell you just a position. They will tell you we need dogs. And that's what Detroit has been good at finding, and I think Ray Agnew has been a big part of that. Second on my list is going to be Matthew Berry, the Senior Director of Player Personnel for the Seahawks. He has a great track record with the Seahawks thus far. Great talent evaluator. He came up as a scout, and he's done a great job with Seattle in helping them develop and find their core that they've established with recent players like Charles Cross, the left tackle, right tackle Abraham Lucas, and finding these DBs and Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant, and just being able to establish that they're going to find splash players. They're going to find players that are going to make impacts immediately, and you have to be able to find guys that come out and do perform on their rookie contract, and that guys that are going to find a way to make an impact to get a second contract. So for me, Matthew Berry has been amazing at finding personnel there. When you look at that Seahawks team, they're one of the deepest teams in the NFC. And every year they're somehow in playoff contention. So I don't think that's an accident. I don't think that's just a coincidence. I think this has been, great roster evaluation, great roster building, and they've done a great job at scouting college players. I have not seen a miss from them recently. Between Boye Mafe, he's been a great late-round selection. I believe he was a day 2 pick. Between the second and third round, he was a great selection. They've been able to build up this D-line. They've been able to build up a deep corner room. The running back room is phenomenal between K9 and Zach Charbonnet. Everybody knows this is one of the best running back rooms in the league. And they've been able to supplement the wide receiver room with Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I think they have been great at, roster building, evaluating what their needs are, self-scouting, which I think is one of the biggest detriments to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are not great at self-scouting. And I also think that, seeing what Seattle has done lately, I think it means something. For them to go to the playoffs last year unexpected, just off the strength of their O-line, Geno Smith having a career year and having the weapons around him to support him, that's no mistake. So I think Matthew Berry is a potential candidate, and he could be a good one. Next, we're going to run off the big three that I think everybody is kind of aware of. These three are guys that are really experienced. They have experience as assistant GMs or player personnel directors, and they're in storied franchises that have either won recently or are big-time contenders. And Ed Dodds, coming from the Indianapolis Colts, one of the best evaluators in the NFL. I think he's done a phenomenal job in helping assemble that roster at the Colts. Obviously having a mutual respect for our AFC South opponent. I think the roster is always competitive. The roster is always, improving. Obviously, we've not seen much playoff success recently, but they're consistently in the race, and I think that's important. Obviously, you want to get over the hump, but injuries have taken a toll on the Colts in the past few years, so just want to show them some grace there as well. But I think Ed Dodds has done a phenomenal job in building that offensive line consistently. Between Tanner Bortolini, he was a great selection this past draft. Obviously, they've done great in drafting Bernhard Raimann. They've drafted Braden Smith. They obviously drafted Quentin Nelson. So these are guys that year in, year out, they're finding guys that can either improve the depth of their O-line or be a starter. So obviously you want a guy that's going to come in here and build up the trenches immediately. There's been a focus on that in Indianapolis. I think it needs to be a focus here in Jacksonville. And Dodds has done a great job in finding guys that can contribute on the offensive side of the ball, especially at the receiver position. Uh, they have one of the deeper receiver rooms in the NFL, in my opinion. We saw that on full display when we played them and won 37-34. That if they have Anthony Richardson, that offense is electric between him and the receiver room, and obviously Jonathan Taylor coming out of the backfield. So for me, Ed Dodds is a great candidate, and the final two that I have are going to be Mike Borgonzi, the assistant GM of the Chiefs. I feel like that one is self-explanatory. He's worked with the New England Patriots as well and helped build over there prior to his run with the Chiefs currently. But he's been with the Chiefs for the past 7 seasons, and he's been a big part of their improvement around Patrick Mahomes and obviously their current dynasty. And I think pulling anybody from that success pool over there in Kansas City is a great move. And he's obviously been a big part of the helm and developing and finding the talent that they have currently. And the final name that I have is going to be Joe Ortiz, the director of player personnel for the Baltimore Ravens. For me, Ortiz, he's been an old school guy, but also has some new roots. And he's been able to help develop possibly the deepest roster in the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens. I think they have, created a great foundation, but also built upon it. Obviously, over the past few years, we talked about Lamar Jackson not having the weapons, not having this, not having that, but always having an O-line and always having a stable of running backs. But now they've been able to address the wide receiver position and really focus on giving Lamar the targets that he needs. I think they've always been trenches, and finding defensive-minded guys, whether it be a great DB or a great linebacker. They've done a great job at evaluating talent on the defensive side of the ball. So I think Joe Ortiz is a great candidate, especially if you want to build that defense up. But they've also been great at finding offensive linemen. So I think Joe Ortiz, he has a chance to be a great general manager, and he has a ton of experience in the NFL, and I think he could definitely lead a franchise. Finally, for our final segment, we'll be talking about 6 trade candidates for the Jaguars. 6 guys that I think are not necessarily walking out of the building, but I think that if the losing continues, they deserve to either have an opportunity to win, or we can get as much value as possible, whether they're an expiring contract or they're soon to be an expiring contract. For first and foremost, we're going to talk about Travis Etienne, the elephant in the room, alongside Tank Bigsby. I personally believe that you should keep Travis Etienne and have a 1-2 punch. I know there are some people on Twitter and Instagram that feel the opposite and think we should start Tank Bigsby. But Travis Etienne, you have to bring it up. For me, if I were to trade Travis Etienne right now, I would be looking for a day 2 and 3 pick. I think the value is still there. Obviously, you don't want to sink the value if you continue to play him. And, we've seen him struggle this season a little bit, especially with the ball handling. But I don't know if you can let a former first-round running back just walk away for a 5th, a 6th. I don't think you can do that. If you trade him, you need a day 2 and a day 3 pick. Ultimately, I know you might be in the comments saying that's unrealistic, but if you're going to trade him, that's what I would be asking for, whether it be a 3rd and a 5th or a 3rd and a 6th, or maybe just give me a 2nd-round pick and let's call it a day. And I've heard a lot of people say that as well. But Etienne, that's where my value stands for him currently as a trade candidate. Next, we're going to talk about Christian Kirk, the person who many people seem to think would be the safety blanket for Trevor. I don't currently see him as the safety blanket, but I think if you're going to move him, you move him to a team that's willing to, splash on a wide receiver too and give you a 2nd-round pick. I'm of the mind to think that, you could possibly trade at the deadline with the Cincinnati Bengals and see if you can get T. Higgins on the line. If you can trade Kirk for Higgins straight up, and give Higgins an extension, I think that is a match made in heaven. Pairing him up with Brian Thomas Jr. But currently, I have Christian Kirk with a day 2 pick value. If you can get a second or a third for him, and if you're not getting a player in return, I think that's great value. I do not think you trade him for anything less than a fourth and another pick, but I would go for a day 2 pick if I'm going to trade Christian Kirk currently. Third, we're going to talk about Cam Robinson. I think right now for him, you need 2 day 3 picks. I would be looking at a team like Dallas. If you're going to be making that move, I think Cam can improve an offensive line, but I'm not entirely sure what the market will truly say for an expiring contract for a left tackle. Um, Definitely could be a rental for a team, so I'm not entirely sure if teams will be willing to give up a third round pick or if they would say, here's a fourth and a seventh. For me, I think just getting 2 day 3 picks, if it's a fifth and a sixth at this point, I think they could be plus additions compared to what Cam is giving you currently, compared to what his contract is. I do not think he's worth extending again. And I think there's a reason why they haven't tried to offer him another extension, and there's no consistent talks about whether we're going to extend Cam or not. We've been through this over and over with Cam Robinson, and I don't think he's going to improve from here. I think at this point in his career, he is what he is, and that's a solid player, but it's not good enough. So for me, I think 2 day 3 picks is good enough, and I would say the same for Mac Jones. If you're going to trade him, I wouldn't recommend it currently. I think you try and give him a backup quarterback money, but if you're going to try and trade Mac Jones to a team like Miami or a team that really just is desperate for some solid quarterback player, even looking for a guy that's a prospect still, because Mac Jones is, around the same age as Trevor Lawrence. I believe he's about a year older. But if you're going to trade him, I think you try and get 2 day 3 picks as well. I don't know what the market will say again about him, but I think you try at least. I would set that as the price point. I want to guarantee that that's what you're going to get, but I think you try and get a fifth and a sixth or a fourth and a seventh, or however you try and make the value work out. Maybe you send a pick in return with him, but I don't think you try and send out assets with Mac, just because you did send out a 6th round pick for him. If you're able to get a plus asset, say you trade him for a fifth and a sixth, you basically get your 6th round pick back and you got a fifth. That's compound interest basically, if you want to look at it that way. But also, I have 2 more players that I want to talk about that should be acquirable for day 3 picks. And unfortunately, they were day 2 selections, and that's Chad Muma and Walker Little. Both of these players have not been afforded the opportunity to start, and I think they were just poor situations to land into. Not even necessarily just stating that it's Jacksonville. I think saying that the position groups that they landed in didn't necessarily afford them the opportunity because there were players there that had been recently paid, whether it be Foye Aluakon or Cam Robinson. And in Walker Little's case, he never really got the opportunity to get a full season as a starter. And the sample size that he did get as a starter in 2022 looked really good, if we're being honest. And I remember the conversation being just let Cam leave or trade him, do something, let Walker get the opportunity to develop. And we never saw that happen. We saw him get some reps last year when Cam was suspended. And granted, Walker was not playing his best. And so when Cam came back, it was a sign of fresh air and brought some life. But I don't think Little or Muma were ever afforded the equal opportunity to be a plus starter. and I think Little got minimal opportunity. I think he got a sample size, he got a chunk of the pie, but I don't think I don't think the crust around him was good enough, so to say. Um, and for Muma, it's just a deep linebacker room, man. I never saw a way for him to be a starter. You go against a first round pick and a free agent guy that's been putting up over 100 tackles consecutively for multiple years, and then you throw in another guy in Ventrell Miller who's just wowing people all of a sudden, and there's really just no room for him. Like, I mean, at this point, like, you look at him like a special teamer, you know? Like, would you really put a third round pick as your fourth linebacker on the depth chart? How crazy would that look? So, with that being said, I do want to wrap up the video. I appreciate you guys for listening. Thank you for coming here. Again, my first video, hopefully the first of many. And this is Toriono Knows Ball, where you can get all your sports knowledge. Thank you. Have a great night.